One thing you learn about medical education is that while everyone is out there living their life, often you're finding yourself in a very small, sheltered place. And often things are going on in the world, and sometimes you don't necessarily understand them. So everyone here can remember, for instance, when they heard that Osama bin Laden had been captured or killed. Or people can remember when an important figure died or a major life event happened. Sometimes these events happened at times in my life, and I had trouble interpreting them because I was so caught up in what I was doing. This title has actually been renamed. I'm going to tell you the old name, which is called It's Just Another Day in Hell. My dream is always the same. It's just another day in hell. I stand on the bone marrow transplant unit. There are no windows. Suddenly, the building starts to shake. The ceiling cracks, letting in rays of sunlight. The ground rumbles below. Sadness, grief, and despair spew from the floor. They rise as black lava erupting from the innards of the building and drag me to the street. I am swept forward as black death encompasses the earth and moves to envelop the sun. It carries me to the east. Always to the east. I've never thrown a punch, never been in a fight, nor carried a gun. So if you ask me what it's like to do battle, I only have a limited set of experiences to draw from. I did, however, catch a glimpse of the desperation of war during residency when I spent a month in the bone marrow transplant unit. I felt continuously under fire, attacked from all sides, desperate. I experienced death every day. It wasn't just the elderly. It was the young, mothers, fathers, children. No one was spared. The bone marrow transplant program during residency was large. There were 50 patients on the unit and then another 30 scattered amongst the oncology floors. We had 10 admissions a day and the same number of discharges. On average, one patient died every shift. The job of taking care of these patients fell on 2 fellows, 2 residents, 1 attending physician, and countless dedicated nurses. There are many beautiful, life-affirming stories that occur on a bone marrow transplant unit. This is not one of those. I remember my last day on the unit. I spent the morning avoiding ambush. There were no codes. All our patients survived the night. I stepped into Mrs. P's room gingerly. Mrs. P had been in the hospital for over 6 months. She had a stubborn lymphoma that persisted despite treatment. She knew that she would never return home. She knitted every morning as she watched the news. As with so many patients, our conversation moved from cordial greeting to a discussion of world events. I went through the motions of my examination as she recounted the most recent atrocities. They were particularly horrible that day. We did this every morning, she telling me who recently died, was killed, or was robbed, and I feigned interest, although in reality I had lost touch with life outside the unit. The world could fall apart, but I was too busy, scurrying after labs, running codes, and talking to family members, secretly trying to protect myself from the death and destruction that surrounded me. If you listen closely to the discussion that we had every morning, the essence of what was said would sound something like this. Doctor, I watch TV and see that in the world things are happening and I'm still here. And dutifully I would respond, yes, yes, bad things are happening in the world, and yet thankfully you are still here. Mrs. P's days were limited, and my days on the unit were almost over. I worked 12 hours a day every day for a month. My time at home in between shifts was surreal. I would sleep, eat, and have conversations that were mostly exhausted bridges to my next stint on the unit. I had become a robot, a zombie. I was withdrawn. It was just another day in hell. I sat down for rounds that morning. Mrs. P was correct. Things were happening in the world, and strangely, I couldn't relate. The TV above us was blaring the latest news. My attending physician was sitting down with his daily Diet Cola and being prepped by the other residents. The hum of the nursing station had reached a fevered pitch. I glanced at my progress notes and realized that I forgot to add the date and time. I looked at the clock on my pager. 10:45 a.m., 9/11/2001. The world had instantly changed, and it would take a good deal of time and spiritual healing to realize that it wasn't just another day of death and destruction on the unit.